So if you haven't noticed, I am not Reverend Amon. However, I'm going to do what I can to bring the pieces of Reverend Amon that mentored and engaged me when I was a young practitioner in religious science. I'm going to do everything I can to wake y'all up a little bit and give you a little bit that I got at Miracle Baptist Church listening to Reverend Bobo. I'm going to do everything I can to share a little bit of insight that piqued my interest when I sat in the balcony at Founders Church and heard Dr. Ronnie say, take what I'm going to give you, go back to where you came from, look in your book and see if you get a better understanding. I'm going to give you what I can to give you a little piece of Dr. Coco Welton, who told us to stand up for ourselves and don't take no mess from nobody. Dr. Maisha Hazard, who trained me and taught me the ways of thinking positively. I listened to OC, who mentored me, and he said it on the front table every time Ndugu and Patrice performed. He was there. He and Dr. Charles Shields, they were there. I'm going to give you what I can from absorbing all of that. Then I got an opportunity to be anointed, I should say, by this man over here, Dr. Ronnie Jones. I'm going to give you what I can to share what he inspired me to do. I'm going to give you what I can to show appreciation for the support and care that I get from Reverend Lisa and Reverend Paul. Because when he got up here, y'all didn't sound like you was from that African nation where we go by call and response. So this is LA Third Church for Spiritual Living. This is the only place where you have a holiness atmosphere in a science of mind sanctuary. Only place where you cross it all. Sanctified with gentleness and strength. Our topic came out of an understanding of how important and imperative it is for men to reflect an aura of strength and stability to their family and to their community, while simultaneously demonstrating gentleness, compassion, flexibility as the foundation of their strength. As the saying goes, and you've all heard it, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. You see, these principles associated with our theme for this month on all of our spiritual presentations that we give here at Los Angeles Third Church are not just gender neutral. They express how the spiritual application of what physically appears as opposites is the truth and universal expression of God's unlimited power. We all seek the covering of sanctification to open the door of our consciousness to an external existence, I should say an eternal existence in harmony with God. You see, to be sanctified in a religious context means to be made holy, to acknowledge the perfection in which you were created. To be sanctified means that you're cleansed of sin, meaning your mistakes have been forgiven. To be sanctified means that you fully acknowledge God's grace, mercy, and forgiveness revealed in the demonstrations of Jesus. Sanctification allows you to embrace the unique assignment or purpose in your life that God designated you and only you to do. You see, when we're sanctified, we acknowledge a complete understanding that you are validated, you are blessed, and socially accepted as you demonstrate the Christ consciousness in thought, in word, and in action. When we are sanctified in gentleness and strength, you envision yourself as this immovable mountain of resilience, faith, and spiritual understanding that can withstand the unpredictable climate conditions of human personalities, physical conditions, mental perceptions, and political confusion. You see, these are conditions and situations that trick us into believing that we need to demonstrate our strength by being rigid and harsh. When somebody hurts your feelings, you say something you don't like, you stop speaking to them. When you get a diagnosis that you didn't expect, fear and uncertainty clouds your faith and your belief. When we experience trauma and stress, our tempers flare and our understanding fades. When people who don't vote for the same candidate as you or share your point of view, they ain't no longer welcome in your house or your church. As I shared during prayer and visioning, standing your ground, sticking out your chest, developing a convincing argument, and cutting off communication is not a sanctified position. It's a fear-based reaction. A sanctified response is motivated by thoughts of grace, peace, understanding, and forgiveness towards those persons or those circumstances. You see, if we get caught up in the ways of this world, if we get caught up in the dialogue that we hear on the news and all the stuff that's floating around in social media, we get tricked into believing that gentleness is a weakness, when the truth is gentleness is strength under control. Gentleness demonstrates the self-discipline to remain calm. Gentleness demonstrates the ability to choose humility over pride. Gentleness demonstrates the desire to help others rather than harm others. Gentleness is the most powerful form of strength. Being sanctified declares that there's nothing stronger than God's love. Jesus taught us that the meek shall inherit the earth. Meek doesn't mean you're a pushover. Meek doesn't mean that you compromise your principles. Meek means you're open to discussion in a loving manner, that you're looking for an area of compromise and unity versus your differences. If a wife wants to paint the house yellow and the husband favors the color blue, the solution is to paint the house green. And I ain't lying, Junior. In our textbook, on page 427, you'll read the words, the teachings of Jesus. In that text, Ernest Holmes is telling us in the midst of this drama and human experience, Jesus declared that the meek shall inherit the earth. The current events and history of this world may cause us to question the validity of that declaration. You see, in the face of all we experience, the overwhelming majority of people don't teach their children to follow in the footsteps of tyrants like Caesar, Napoleon, Hitler, or any narcissistic, selfish, deluded, demonic version of a king that uses fear as his primary motivation. But we do encourage our young people. We do encourage those that we care about. We encourage them in the ways demonstrated by Jesus, the ways demonstrated by Buddha, Muhammad, and Moses. Most of us proclaim that the cross is mightier than the crown and impart to our families and community that love masters everything. You see, we can diffuse conflict with a gentle response that breaks down rigid defenses. When we control our enormous power, we use gentleness as a means to consciously choose peace and compassion over war and discrimination. The world's problems persist because the human personality is fragile. That's why all this mess is going on. It's us. We break too easily. We give in too quick. We make a decision not based on spiritual information, but based on material circumstances. The individual me takes priority over the collective we. When most, if not all, face acknowledge that we are all an expression of the one almighty presence. When we individually and collectively come to the realization that gentleness and strength are not opposites, when we stand firmly in our truth, that there are different expressions of the only power, the unconditional love of God. We can become sanctified in gentleness and strength. Y'all know how I feel about Jesus. I have this little motto of mine: I want to be more like the Christ consciousness in everything that I do. When Jesus gave his Sermon on the Mount, his intro was a prose poem, which we call the Beatitudes. The word beatitude recognizes an attitude or consciousness that recognizes the blessings in all conditions, in all experiences. So what he told you was, blessed are the humble. Blessed are those who are poor in false pride, who are humble and unassuming, because they are willing to learn. They enjoy the kingdom of growth and expansion. They know that progress that leads to well-being. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are those who use sorrow as a step towards strength, peace, and understanding. They find comfort in knowing God's presence. Blessed are the meek that demonstrate the gentleness of God. Those who know that power comes not through personal prowess, but through receptivity of the divine power that you inherited. Those who live with an attitude gain control of themselves and inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger for justice. Those of you who yearn for right thinking and truly desire to use God's laws rightly. Those of you who do that, your reward will be an abundance of good, he said. He said, blessed are those who are loving and merciful. Their mercy attracts kindness in return, for one receives in the measure that one gives. He tells us that blessed are those who are pure at heart, those who harmonize their thoughts with God's laws and radiate peace to others. They are sons of the one Father and brothers to all men. And then he says, blessed are the peacemakers, those who live up to their highest understanding of truth, regardless of public opinion or mental inertia. Their increasing consciousness of indwelling divinity will bring them rich rewards. And he concludes that poem by reminding us that we are blessed even when others treat you wrong, even when others talk about you behind your back. He says, when we are sanctified in gentleness and strength, your reward of purity, comfort, and peace will be increased by your heavenly consciousness. You see, it's essential to remember that Jesus was dealing with states of mind and attitudes of being. In this dissertation, he wasn't telling us what to do, but he was telling us what to be, that we may gain and maintain a consciousness and a state blessed on oneness with our highest good. And I know some of you are thinking right now, yeah, Reverend Jerrold, you talking about being gentle and peaceful and kind, and even when people are talking bad about you and people are all in your face and spreading your business all over town. What about that passage in the Bible in Exodus 21, 23 to 25? I know you're thinking about it. The one that says, but if there is serious injury, you can take a life for a life, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a hand for a hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, and stripe for stripe. What about that passage, Reverend Jerrold? Talking about your little gentleness and strength. Here's the deal. If you absorb Scripture only from a literal or physical perspective, you'll misinterpret what it says. You see, these words refer to an ancient spiritual principle of exact reciprocal justice, representing that the ultimate spiritual law of cause and effect is always in play. Y'all refer to it as karma. So in that passage, Moses wasn't telling you to hit them back as soon as they hit you. He was informing us that the consciousness or energy that you project into the world will return to you. So when it's all going bad, when you can't seem to get nothing right, all it means is that you ain't right. All it means is that you've made some choices and haven't forgiven yourself for the choices that you made. The Beatitudes affirm that we are blessed when we have a spirit of humility, meekness, mercy, and peace. When we use God's power and strength rightly and seek joy in his presence. Responding with kindness and words of love works. I can testify that it works. I've told you before, and I'll remind you one more time. When I first got my first good job, went out and bought my first suit, it was kind of beige like this one. I didn't know I needed black or blue for business. I had a boss, Jewish fella, came up through the ranks, didn't have much education. He was one of them hard-working guys that got promoted, you understand? And he was all over all of us all the time. What are you doing? What you doing? Just a pain and you know what. Everybody in the division despised this man. Tried their best not to get anywhere near him. One of the brothers that we all know from City of Angels, George, he worked for me in the liquor industry. He used to drink Maalox before every meeting. That's how upset this man would make him. It would upset his stomach. He would just harass me. He'd call ahead to my clients, and then when I get there, your boss called, I call him, yeah, Bobby. Oh, I was just making sure you were on your route. That kind of stuff. We all despise this man. One day, I read something. One day I heard something. I believe it was from Reverend Marks over at Founders, Dr. Ryan. Remember Reverend Marks was teaching the class? And he said, find something, just one thing, that you can admire and respect about the people that's giving you a hard time. Just one thing. And whenever you see that person, use that greatest power God gave you, which is your imagination, and visualize that person as that one thing. As big a butthole as he was a hell of a family man. He had 3 sons and a wife, been married for 50-something years like y'all. I mean, his family thing dynamic was just wonderful. So every time I thought about Bobby Solomon, every time I saw Bobby Solomon, every time somebody mentioned his name, I became laser focused on this family man who loved his sons and his wife and would do anything for them. I did not change my work habits. My reports were still late. Nothing changed. The only thing that changed was how I envisioned him. I promise you, the man started treating me like I was one of his sons. Nobody in the division could understand. I wasn't kissing no butt. I wasn't doing nothing different. And they were all like, what happened? What happened here? The only thing that happened was my view, my understanding, my ability, no matter what he says to me, does to me, no matter who he, what his political ideology is, no matter what it is I didn't like. There was something about him I could admire. I encourage you to find that something in every conflict that you experience. That person that you haven't spoken to for years because they did something you just can't forgive them for. Think about them, and when you do, think about what you know to be their highest quality. So I don't want you to buy into the notion that toughness is the most effective way of getting things done. I'm not suggesting that you don't defend yourself when you're under physical attack. I just want us to include understanding, empathy, and compassion in your arsenal of defense. Reverend Paul told you that we must be connected to the power that is everywhere present. We got to stop searching for answers outside of ourselves and look into our own mind for the solutions that we seek. Don't just speak your word, have faith in what you say, knowing God is working with you, in you, and as you. You see, bad news is not part of God's plan. Y'all get that, what you call bad news? That ain't part of his plan. Bad news is a result from the misuse of God's promise. If you want to change your circumstances, purify your thoughts. Your best insurance, I know y'all spend a lot of money on life insurance, but your best insurance is knowledge and wisdom. A guy named Michael Jensen, minister, writer, in his dissertation, The Power of Gentleness, emphasizes that God is utterly powerful, yet he treats us gently. His article confirms that gentleness is not the opposite of strength or passion. That a truly gentle person is a person who is strong, but who treats the weak and vulnerable with care and protection. He says the gentle person does not break the fragile. The same power that illuminates the stars is the same power that causes wildfires. He says the same energy that manifests as gravity creates nuclear fusion. The natural force that produces cyclones and earthquakes also propels waterfalls and makes a calming breeze. But if precisely because of this power that can do all of these things, just by showing you its gentleness. When he deals with his creatures, when God deals with us, he teaches us restraint and how to restrain his power. He does not crush us. Rather, he stoops over and tenderly helps us up. Isaiah 40:11, we hear he tends to his flock like a shepherd. He gathers the lambs in his arms and carries them close to his heart. He gently leads those who have young. You see, the shepherd is a great biblical image of God's gentleness. It combines tenderness and toughness all in one. From the Bible, we learn that God is gentle with us as his creatures are providing the resources for the earth. Everything that we need has been provided. He is also gentle when we go astray from him, as he gently woos us back into the path of righteousness. And in Jesus, we see the gentleness of human form. More than any other character in history, Jesus was a picture of gentle strength and humble power. These are his words in Matthew 11. He says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest in your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." You see, what we see in Jesus is a deeper definition of gentleness. Gentleness when the strong are restrained from their own self for the sake of someone who's weaker or someone who's in need. The Holy Spirit wants us to cultivate the fruits of his gentleness in our lives. So not only does Paul list as in the fruits of the Spirit, but Jesus says pretty much the same thing when he says, "Blessed are the meek." As Paul tells the Philippians, "Let your gentleness be known to all." So I can't let you go today without asking you these questions. Are you truly a gentle person? Are you truly a gentle person? Where you have power, do you exercise it with gentleness? If you don't get anything from what I'm telling you today, I want you to remember that gentleness is not a weakness. We can be fooled sometimes by worldly circumstances, that thinking that because we are a conflict avoidant or passive person that we're gentle. When our own personal temptations, in our own self-gratification, sanctity, weakness as being gentleness, when it's really just cowardice and fear. Sometimes we can fool ourselves into thinking we're doing the right thing because we're going around doing what everybody tells us to do. And we being nice and observing, and what's what I'm looking for? When I commemorating or whatever, I can't think of the word, but the word giving. Those are great qualities, and they represent gentleness. But make sure that gentleness is coming from your true spirit within you and not just trying to avoid a situation. We must not affirm that true gentleness comes from finding, I should say, we must always affirm that true gentleness comes from finding our source of strength and confidence in the gentleness of Christ. If we are to grow in gentleness, we must know in the realization, and we must grow in that realization of how tenderly and humbly I've been treated by God Himself. That always has to be our starting place. When you don't know where to start from the blessings that God has given you. The first and very step towards being sanctified in gentleness and strength is to count your blessings. That's number one. And now, I want us to proclaim together, without any doubt or any hesitation, that gentleness and strength are not opposites, but they are different expressions of the only power. Now I want us to understand that we can attest to the spiritual truth that the unconditional love of God is the foundation of all gentleness and all strength. Before I let you go, as my good friend Frankie would say, I want us all to proclaim these intentions aloud together. My strength is rooted in stillness and not force. One more time. My strength is rooted in stillness, not in force. I will remain open, kind, and forgiving. Gentleness is my highest power. Strength is my greatest expression of that power. Let that be your affirmation. Let that be the call of announcement of every day that you begin, and particularly a day when it don't seem like it's going right. Recall who you are, what you are, and whose you are. Recall that you are sanctified in gentleness and strength. Recall that no matter what they're saying to you, what they're doing to you, what you expected and didn't get, you start from what? Counting your blessings. And after you count them up, ingest that love that God has given to you, and you only got one thing to do after that. Share that same love, that same forgiveness, that same understanding with all who come into your space. God bless you.